Wow. Hey, Journey to Greatness broadcast. Hello there. God bless you. Hello. We're so excited. I'm Dr. Randall Hall Walker. What a joy it is to come to you by way of television. Thank you so much, studio audience. Thank you for joining us today on Journey to Greatness broadcast with Dr. Randall and Birdella Hall Walker. What a joy it is to come to you by way of television and share with you our journey to greatness. We were in your living rooms last week, in your place of business, and different, wherever you were watching us, and we were sharing with you about the strong-willed child.
Yes.
And it was so exciting. I tell you what, I took off last week, and I didn't give my co-host opportunity to say anything. I mean, I just took off. But it was exciting as we were dealing with the strong-willed child on last week. So today we're going to pick up from there, part 2 of the strong-willed child. But we're going to let my darling, darling baby, my sweet and sexy lady. Oh, I tell you what, I can't help it. I'm telling you what, I forget I'm on Christian television. But at any rate, my awesome, extraordinary wife is going to take the lead today on the strong-willed child and share with you some practical truths and insight into dealing with the strong-willed child, because she's a strong-willed woman and was a strong-willed child. I'm a strong-willed man and I was a strong-willed child. So we've learned some things about the strong-willed child that we want to empower your life to help you, because so often we think that correcting the problem is beat the hell out of them, and that's not actually the answer. There's a real factor to dealing with the strong-willed child. So if you're having some struggles in that area, we're going to help you there. And if you would be so kind to get on the phones, call a friend, call a neighbor, call a co-worker, just call anybody. I don't care who you call, but just call someone and tell them, join us on the Journey to Greatness broadcast with Dr. Randall and Birdella Hall Walker. And if you are watching this broadcast in California, I know we're on a different time. We want to give a shout out to all our friends out there in California. Yes, want to say hello to you out there in California. Also, up in the Midwest, up in Chi-Town, Chicago. Hello, Chicago.
Hi.
Hey. And I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to my wonderful mom in Detroit, Michigan.
Yes.
Hello, Mommy. Hi, Mom. Hey. And last but not least, my wonderful son and grandkids that's in the great state of Florida, in Orlando area. We say hello to them. Let's give a shout out to our wonderful grandkids.
Yes, hello.
Hey.
How are you all?
Well, listen, thank you. I'm going to give a shout out to all who are watching. Say hello to you, and thank you for tuning in to us. Thank you for tuning in to the Journey to Greatness broadcast with Dr. Randall Birdella Hall Walker. But I'm going to get out of the way today, because I tell you what, last time I just stayed in the driver's seat and didn't give my co-hosts time to say anything. And time they got ready to say something, it was time up, and we only have a short 30 minutes of broadcasting, so we want to jump right in. So I want you to welcome my awesome, extraordinary, powerful lady that just is just an amazing. She's a writer. She's an author. Oh man, she is so gifted. She's written 2 books, Manhattan Secret and Manhattan Secret, The Edge of Death. And she's an actor. She's a producer. She's a soloist. She's just multi-talented. So we're blessed to hear from her. But that all came about by being a strong-willed child. But anyway, I'm not going to give her story. I'm going to let her share her own story. Why don't you help me welcome my wonderful wife, my co-host, Birdella Hall Walker.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for coming. Thank you so much. And last week it was so funny how we were ending it at the point where I was saying if the mother or the father would tell the child why, because children are why kids. Why do we have to do this, or why do we have to do that? If you tell them why, it will help eliminate a lot of the frustration that parents have.
Okay.
So one of the things that I want to share with the characteristics of the strong-willed child is they are, as I said last week, very amazing. They're intelligent, they're robust, they love to think for themselves, they're inventors. They are, I'm going to get it done no matter what. There's nothing going to stand in my way. I know what I want to do. I know what I want. Those are their determination natures that they have. So that's the way they start off. And if parents would look at the child and not look at so much of their frustration, they would begin to evaluate the child in a different manner. The Word of God tells us to train up a child in the way that he should go. and when he's old, he won't depart from it. So what we need to do is train them up in and learn the techniques of raising a child. If you've never had a child
That's
before,
good.
I remember when my son was 7, and I don't remember what he was doing, and he was just having such a hard time. And I remember yelling at him about it, and he started crying, and I'm like, well, why are you crying? He says, Mommy, because you're yelling sounds like noise. And I
Mm,
stood there for a minute, and at first, that first reaction that you have is,
sure.
I'm gonna beat him for telling me that I sound like a bunch of noise instead of listening to what I'm saying. But I thought about it. I said, yeah, he's being yelled at, so that means that he's not understanding. And I took him. I says, let's go sit down on the sofa. And I sat down, and I told him I was sorry for yelling at
Wow,
him.
that's great.
And we began to talk, and I began to explain to him, because guess what? I was yelled at.
Mm.
So
Oh,
because I was yelled at, I thought that was the technique of
wow.
raising my child.
Oh, that's
So
good.
I began to transfer the same system down to my system of training
Hmm.
down to my son. And I was so glad that he halted that by saying, Mom, it sounds like noise. And
Wow.
I recall it did sound like a lot of noise when you're being yelled at. Because I would just go, I was terrible. I hate to say this on television, but when I did get yelled at, I would just start humming. Because I didn't want to hear it. It didn't sound like anything that was productive. It didn't sound like anything that was going to help me. So I helped my son, and from that day, I just knew it. I learned a different technique by him teaching me. You don't have to yell at me to get
Unbelievable.
something done.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
Yes.
That is wonderful.
So with that, I began to talk to him and explain to him what I needed from him and what was expected of him. Getting back to that child, him as well as all other strong-willed childs, we don't seem to understand them. We think that they're defiant.
Right.
We
Oh,
think
yeah.
that they are challenging our authority.
Sure.
But they're not challenging our authority. This
Mm.
is a child that you birthed, you brought into this world, but they are not you. They are whoever you name them to be. Let's name
Mm.
one of them. Let's just name him, what's a good name?
Charlie.
Charlie. Let's just name him Charlie. And let's name her April. So Charlie is a strong-willed child, and April's a strong-willed girl, and they are in the same home, and parents are dealing with them. They go out to dinner. The child doesn't want what the parent is giving them, and onlookers are saying, you need to take that child out of here, or that child is disrupting my dinner. But no one is looking at the child. Everyone is looking at themselves. The
Wow.
parents are looking at the fact that they're embarrassed.
Sure.
The neighbors or the people in the table next door are looking at the child as one who's not disciplined at home.
Mm.
But that may not be the case at all. The thing is that you're not catering to the child's emotions. You are trying to understand their emotion.
Yeah.
You're
Sure.
trying to understand, what
Absolutely.
are you going through? You knew we were coming out to dinner. You knew we were going to McDonald's or Burger King or whatever. So why are we having this problem? You have to find out what is actually happening with that child at that moment.
That's good.
And it's not a matter of I bought you a hamburger and that's what you're going to eat. That's the way I was raised. If I didn't eat it, I just didn't eat that night. And it's not a matter of saying that the child is dictating the home. It's not. The child is growing into themselves.
Mm.
They're becoming their own person. They're becoming
Right,
their
that's
own
right.
personality. You help them from the time of zero birth until they were 2 years old, and then you begin to develop them. You begin to talk around them. You took them places. You let them watch movies. You were really, really engrossed in their pre-education, and now that they're talking, as I said last week, you want to shut them up.
Mhm.
But these children are now developing into their feelings. They're developing into their emotions, their
Sure.
character, their identity. And so now let's just deal with the children at a restaurant. They're screaming because that's not what they want. The thing to do is just settle everything. Let's just stop for a moment. The child is going to listen because now everything is on a standstill. Let's just stop for a moment. could you tell me what the problem is?
So you're saying communicate.
Communicate with the child. Don't just yell at them or say,
That's good.
I'm going to take you into the bathroom and I'm going to beat you a little behind, or you're not going to get anything to eat. I'm just going to take you out of here. What do you think that does to the kid?
Wow.
It fuels them and they start screaming.
Yes.
They're like, only thing they can remember in their head is you told me you were taking me to McDonald's, and now just because I don't want that, you're going to take me back home and I get nothing to eat? What other emotion can they really respond to?
Wow, that is so good.
So these kids are learning from you, and yet at the same time, we're not learning from the child.
Wow.
We are not learning. The children can help us in training them in the way that they need to go. I also remember a time when I sat down with my son, and we were having that moment after yelling at him, and I got embarrassed. I remember we sat down, and I said to him this, and I was praying the whole time, Lord, how do I handle this? He's such an awesome kid. Doesn't get in any trouble. Why would I want to do this and make him feel like he's feeling? And that's what I had to do. I had to connect with his feelings, his heart, and his emotion. And I said to him, I said, David, you know, I've never been a mother before. And you've never had a mother before. And so I don't know how to really be a mother to you, just like you don't know how to be a son to me.
Wow.
So what I want us to do, and he was about 7 years old, I said, why don't we try to learn one another? We're not talking about a friendship here. We're talking about a mother-son relationship. If we can learn each other, you can learn me as a mother, I can learn you as a son, and we can grow together in this, it's going to make for a much happy home. And I know he didn't understand all of that, but he knew it sounded better than yelling, and he said, okay. So one of the things that we did, honey, is that on Saturdays, I would free my day on Saturdays, and we would take, because we lived in Chicago, we would take off on the L train, and we would go downtown, and we would go to the beach, we would walk the city sidewalk, and we would just have such a great time, he and I. We had so much fun learning each other. I would sit down and I would watch him, the things that he was doing, and I was just admiring the growth, admiring his discovery of things, admiring how he was. He was just an awesome kid to watch. And I'm sure that he began to do the same thing with me. He began to admire his mom, admire what his mom was doing and how she did things. Because when I look at him now as a grown son, a grown man, with his own daughters, I'm saying he did learn something from me. Right. He really did.
That's good.
And he is still a strong-willed man. If I say something to him certain time, Mom, now I can do that. I'm like, okay, here we go again. I forget he is a grown kid. Okay, right. A grown man, not a kid. And
no, a grown kid.
He's
because
yes.
we never grow up as
right. And so it just really amazes me, the parents who don't know how to raise their children. Parents, audience here, and audience, watch TV audience, I'm just saying this to you. Don't take offense to it. You've never been a mother before. So how is it that you really know how to raise a child just because you saw someone else with a kid? And what did they really do with that child? Did you see them yelling at them? Did you see them spank them, hit them, call them names? What did you see? What did you witness that now makes you respond and act the same way towards your own little precious jewel that you saw someone else do? So without offense, I'm saying to you that we don't know how to raise the children. You need the Spirit of God in you to raise these children. You need to know how to raise them, because one day they're not only going to just slide off of your lap and begin to walk in your home. They're going to walk out that door when they become 17 and 18 and 19 and they're on their way to college. And now you're saying, I don't have them anymore. Have I done everything that I could have done to make sure that when they're not home with me protected, are they going to be okay out there on their own? Wow. You have to make sure that you have raised them right, and that even if they are strong-willed children, you bring a balance. You help them to challenge or channel their emotions in the right direction. If you want something, you don't have to have a temper tantrum to get it. All you
That's
have
good.
to do is ask. If in fact the parent says that this is not something that you really need at this time, don't just say you don't need it. Don't just say I'm not getting it. Don't just say it's not for you. Explain to the child why. Because when you explain why, it brings about an understanding for them. They can sit back and they can think about it, well, okay, later on. I remember my husband and I, we had a ring. I think it had a diamond in it, right?
Oh, yeah.
It
Very
had a
expensive
diamond
ring.
in it.
Sentimental value as well.
And my husband wanted to give it to our son. At that time, he was a teenager, a young teenager, and I had told my husband, I'm not sure that he's ready for that because he doesn't actually know the value. And so he waited until he was able to learn the value of it. And before he got that one, I had a solid gold ring that I gave to him. And I said, okay, David, now this is solid gold. I want you to understand this is something of great importance. So one day he lost it. He said, I was outside with the dog and I lost it. He said, Mom, I need that ring. I said, oh, yeah, I know you need that ring because I gave it to you. For 3 days, he went out looking for it. I went out with him. We prayed. On the third day, can you imagine in your backyard, you actually finding a ring? You're not going to be able to do that. But because we prayed,
Yes.
we happened to be out there and we looked down and saw this thing shining in the ground, and there it was. From that point on, he cherished that ring because guess what? He learned the value of it.
Wow, that's great.
And when we get to that place of understanding our children need to understand their worth, their value, and the value of what surrounds their life, it's going to make for such a better relationship between the parents and the children. It's going to make a better relationship between the parents, between the children and their siblings. It's going to make a better relationship for them when they go out in the environment. It's going to make a better relationship for them when they grow up and they realize that I am now on my own, that I don't have to have a temper tantrum. I don't have to get upset about this. When you see the news and you hear of crime and you think of the person who committed a crime, you have to say, what in the world was their childhood like?
Yeah, that's good, right?
What did they go through? Was it that bad that you would want to throw a temper tantrum, that you would get mad because you lost your job, mainly because you weren't doing it, that you have to take a gun back into the business and kill people? What is it that caused you as a child to then grow up to be a serial killer or be a serial rapist?
Wow.
What happened to you as a child? And the parents, what did you not do to help them to become a balanced child? Strong-willed children are also strong-willed murderers. They're also serial killers. They're also rapists. So if you don't balance them out as a child, if you don't train them up in the way that they should go as children, you're going to have these issues, the embarrassment, the reputation just destroyed. Those things are going to happen. We talked about the positive side of strong-willed children who are strong-willed adults, such as our presidents, all of our presidents, those who own their own businesses, those who are striving to move forth into their education. Those are strong-willed people who say, I'm going to get what I want, I'm going to get what I need, and they do everything they can to move forward into that. So again, strong-willed children usually come from strong-willed parents.
Yes.
They are amazing. I'm glad that my husband and I both realized that strong-willed children are very, very productive, very profitable for the society because they help make things happen.
Yes.
They help make the community stronger. They help make their teachers. They are people that help children and help other people become the best that they can be. So I want to turn it over to my husband for just a moment because I know I did share a lot, and I'm really, really passionate about the fact of parents not raising their children in the way that they ought to raise them, that when they see this and they begin to identify that attribute in that child, to develop it, help culture that child into what they need to become, because they will be the best kids. You will be so proud of them if you don't break their spirit.
Wow, that's
They
good.
will be awesome if you just say, okay, Lord God, you've given me a strong-willed child. Help me, help me. And he will do that. But you have to identify it early, because they'll start by the time that they're 2 years old. When they start, when you want to hold them still in your lap, and they want to get down and walk, and you begin to grab them and they're pulling away, they're not being defiant. That is a strong-willed child, and they can be the best that you could ever imagine that they can be.
Wow, that's good. That's good. Well, basically, I have a question, and because you mentioned about when David was 7 years old,
Yes.
and how you immediately recognized uh, that he was able to talk to you and communicate with you and build relationship. But you made a distinction that I noticed, is that you still remain his parent. You did not become buddy-buddy with him, trying to build relationships. A lot of parents, I think, make the big, huge mistake by thinking that be buddy-buddy with them and be friends with them in the sense of doing the things that they do. Say if they are drinking and smoking, they think it's okay for them to drink with their children,
Wow.
smoke with their children, run around to the bar with their children, run around with their children, because they say they want to build relationships with them. Instead of pulling them out, they get sucked in. And so I want to ask you the question, how was you able to make that distinction of immediately that, hey, I'm not going to be his running buddy. I'm not going to be someone that we just say anything and with there's disrespect there and there's no respect. I'm going to make sure he stay in his lane and I'm going to stay in mine. What happened that you knew to make that distinction, and then how was you able to not fall into the trap of trying to be a buddy to your son? Because it's amazing how I see parents feeling like they want their son or daughter to make their own decisions, as if they're capable of making well-informed decisions based on their emotions and their feelings and what they're going through. You don't, personally, I don't believe you should allow your kids to make any decision without first consulting you, and you discuss with them and talk to them so that they can make a well-informed decision, not based on their emotions, not based on what's happening down the street, not based on what the Joneses are doing, not based on what happened in school, but they make that decision based on their future or where they're headed and where they're going, because one bad choice can cost you a lifetime of misery. But I noticed you mentioned that, so kind of if you could share with our viewers and our audience about how you were able to immediately recognize that you're going to raise your kid and you're going to raise them in a way of a relationship, but you're going to keep the respect there.
Yes, as a relationship of a parent and a child, I realize that I'm still the experienced one. That what I've been through and what I've seen and what I've experienced and what I've been involved in, the child is so innocent and has no idea what it is or what it entails to be an adult. And the only way that a child is going to know that is you have to teach them how to become. I made the distinction because of him being the child and myself being the adult, that I have been involved in life. He doesn't know life. He's only looking at it from my perspective.
That's
He
good.
doesn't know that if I'm in the kitchen and I'm cooking, or he or she, that I'm in the kitchen and I'm cooking, he doesn't know that that stove is hot until he comes over and touch it. And then once he comes over and touch it, I can say, this is something that you don't want to do. You have to learn how to work it, because I'm sure in his mind, mommy's in there, or her mind, mommy's in there working with this stove, and they're doing this and doing that. So I can just come right over and touch it. And then when they do, they get burned, they're crying, they're hurt. When you teach and train the children that they are just children and their brains have really not developed completely to engulf everything that the world is offering it or showing it. Their brains have not developed enough for the education that they needed. They're not educated enough in life for you to even think that you're on an equal plane.
Wow, that's
So the
good stuff.
parent needs to understand that, because you're leading that child in a very dangerous direction if you decide that we're going to walk the same path at the same time, regardless of the age, that you and I are going to go bar hopping together, drinking together. You're gonna see what's going to turn out. I'll give you a good example.
We're almost out of time.
Okay,
Go right
when
ahead.
parents sit at home and drink wine, and then they sit at home with the children drinking wine, usually the children turn into alcoholics because they don't understand the concept of it. All they saw was the fact that we can drink wine together, but did not know how far they could go with it and didn't know how far it was going to take them.
That is good stuff.
Yes.
Well, listen, we're out of time. It's been a joy coming to you by way of television and share with you our journey to greatness. Again, I'm Dr. Randall Hall Walker. My wife has shared so eloquently about the strong-willed child, and we trust we've been a blessing to you and helped empower your life for how to deal with your son or your daughter who perhaps is a strong-willed child, and maybe rethink beating the hell out of them, and rethink just being cruel and unjust punishment.
Yes.
But there are ways to deal with them, and my wife brought out so eloquently building relationship.
Yes.
I think that was clear today, so we're so grateful to her. Let's give her a big
Thank you.
wonderful
Thank you all
appreciation.
so much.
And we want to thank our
you.
studio audience. Thank you so very much for joining us. Thank all of you for being a part of our studio audience. And thank you to those who are watching by way of television. We trust we've been a blessing to you. And if we've been a blessing to us, consider supporting the ministry. There's a number on your screen. Call and make a generous donation so we can keep coming to you by way of television. Or email us at journeytogreatnessbc@gmail.com, or go to our website, FWC, and connect with us, because it's all about relationships.
Yes.
Again, I'm Dr. Randall Hall Walker, my co-host, Birdella
Thank
Hall
you.
Walker, and we say thank you for joining
Thank
us,
you.
and we wish God's very best to you. Hi, I'm Dr. Randall Hall Walker. What a joy it has been coming to you by way of television. This is our anniversary year, and we're looking forward to going into the next year with you. However, if the support is not there to continue to keep us on the air, we're going to have to say goodbye. Of course, that'll be a sad, bitter day for us. But I want to encourage you right now to consider supporting the ministry, so as we celebrate our anniversary, we can go into a new year with you and continue to come to you by way of television. We trust we've been a blessing to you, and if we've been a blessing to you in any way, I want to encourage you to get your checkbook out and write a check, make it payable to Freedom Worship Center of Charlotte, or you say, I don't write checks. You can go to our website, FWC Charlotte, click on Give, and make a generous gift so we can stay on the air. We're counting on your support. We need your support to continue to do what we're doing. So trust we've been a blessing, and if we have, we need your support. Wishing God's very best to you. Again, I'm Dr. Randall Hall Walker, and I have enjoyed coming to your living rooms, place of business, and speaking the word of God to you. So love you, and again, wishing God's very best